So it's Tuesday, it's Reviews Day Tuesday, and this week sees the return of the Quiet as Mouse book club. It's back. It's actually back. I mean, I still haven't finished reading How Green Is My Valley, so it's not back with the book I was actually meant to be reviewing, but instead I am reviewing On the Other Side by Carrie Hope Fletcher. I reviewed her first book, a non-fiction book, All I Know Now, last year, and I will link to that video below. On the Other Side is her first fiction book. It was published last week and I read it over the weekend. Also, I'm going to try and be as non-spoilery as possible. This book follows Evie Snow, who dies at 82. This isn't a spoiler, she dies before we meet her in Limbo, or Heaven's Waiting Room. In order to get to heaven, she has to unburden herself of 3 secrets which she has been carrying since she was 27 years old. And we follow her as she tries to pass these secrets on to her family. And also we get to hear the story of what happened to her when she was 27 years old, when she meets and falls in love with Vincent Winters. Okay, before I start quickly, this book is so beautiful. The cover really suits the book. I was doing that thing that I do with Terry Pratchett books, where you kind of refer back to the cover as you're reading when you notice something. I tend to enjoy books where the author has a very distinctive writing style, like Terry Pratchett, Douglas Adams. I wouldn't say that this has that as such, but I did find it pretty interesting. It's simply written, but it also has these flowery, very specific descriptions going on, and it's certainly very easy to read. I mean, I read the whole thing in like 5 or 6 hours. Also, I think the style works well for what I think this book is, which is a fairy tale. Once I started reading this book as a fairy tale, my enjoyment of it increased a lot. For a start, it's very out of time. It's not set in a specific time period. It's very much once upon a time and not at all last week. This is an interesting choice. I can see why it was made. It gives it a certain amount of mystery and magic, but it can also be a bit disorientating. There are things that seem quite modern, like Halloween being celebrated for ages before actual Halloween, and Evie goes to a club with her friend who comes out to her as pansexual, but there are also things that seem less modern, like an arranged marriage. This lack of a time also meant that there wasn't really any discernible contrast between the world when Evie is 27 and the world when Evie is 82. The characters have aged, but the world has stayed still. Also, going back to the fairy tale thing, this world, or possibly just Evie's world, is full of magic. There's a dove which has love notes written on it. There's also a thing with a tree, which can be distracting, but if you're thinking fairy tale, then you can concentrate on the story and on how imaginative it is, because it is really imaginative. Also, when Evie first arrives in Limbo, it seems like this is an unusual, weird and strange thing, but really unusual, weird and strange things have always been happening to Evie. So yeah, I think this works best as a fairy tale. I think it works really well as a fairy tale. It's very imaginative. I'm impressed with Carrie's brain. Also, I'm impressed with her plotting, because we have 3 stories running parallel here. We have Evie in Heaven's Waiting Room trying to get through to heaven. We have the world after she has died where her family are trying to discover her secrets. And we also have this story with Vincent Winters when she is 27 years old. And we have to get to a lot of stuff in the latter story in order for things in the other 2 stories to make sense. So I was really impressed with that. I thought that was done well. I also like the characters, although I wouldn't say that we got to know many. Vincent and Jim, yes, and also Evie's children. They seem pretty well painted. And I also liked Evie. I mean, there are a lot of ways in which I cannot relate to her at all. I mean, she's upper class and she has this whole family situation which is so far removed from my reality. But then also for a lot of the book, she's a 27-year-old trying to find her way in the world. Also, side note, I very rarely stumble across female protagonists that are around my age. I mean, if I want to read a book where the main character is female and in her late 20s, I have to search. If anybody has any recommendations, I would love to hear them. The ones I can think of are The Secret Diary of Lizzie Bennet and the Lydia Bennet one. Those 2 based off the Lizzie Bennet diaries, but do they count because they're based on a web series? And also Persuasion by Jane Austen. Like, those are the 3 which come to mind. So props for having a 27-year-old main character, and also for having an 82-year-old main character. I mean, I'm complaining about not being able to find many main characters my age. That's not going to improve as I get older. Anyway, I've moved off topic a bit here. I feel like this could be an entire other video. I also really liked how the elderly characters were written. I mean, I've never been an elderly person, but their portrayals seemed sympathetic and realistic. In conclusion, I enjoyed this book. I think it is best read with your mind open to magic and the supernatural, as a fairy tale, a modern fairy tale. And as a modern fairy tale, I will give it 4 out of 5. So my next book review will be of How Green Is My Valley, and that will be on December the 8th, 2019. I'm kidding, it will probably be in a couple of weeks. And then after that, I am reviewing The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day. I would love to know what you think about On the Other Side if you have read it, and I will see you later on in the week.